Okay, let's just dive right in. If you teach high school, you definitely know the daily struggle. You stand at the front of the room, you deliver absolutely fantastic information, and your students just nod along. They're locked into that passive learning mode, essentially just waiting to memorize whatever's going to be on the test. But what if we could flip that dynamic, like instantly? Welcome to this explainer on mastering the open card sort strategy. Today, we're unpacking the ultimate instructional tool designed specifically to activate what we call deep thinking mode in grades 9 through 12. We are going to take that heavy cognitive load entirely off your shoulders and put it exactly where it belongs, squarely on the students.
So here's our roadmap for today. 1. Welcome to deep thinking. 2. The 3-step setup. 3. Cross-curricular application. And 4. Advanced facilitation techniques.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1. Welcome to deep thinking.
Now, as we redefine our main goal in the high school classroom, we really want to move away from passive identification and push our kids toward active, inductive reasoning. So we need to understand exactly what this strategy actually is. An open card sort is a high cognitive demand collaborative activity. You give your students a set of items, and they have to design their own system to categorize them. Now, the absolute key here is that word open. Unlike a traditional card sort where you might, hand them a worksheet with the headers already printed at the top, here you do not provide the categories. By stepping back and withholding that structure, you're literally forcing the students to analyze the raw info, discover hidden patterns, and identify relationships entirely on their own.
And really, the entire philosophy of this strategy boils down to one core mantra: sort it your way and explain. By telling students to sort it their way and then explain their reasoning, you are validating that there is no single, crystal-clear way to group these concepts. You're inherently encouraging flexible thinking, you're inviting multiple valid solutions, and most importantly, you're demanding that they defend and justify their own unique connections.
So why is this so incredibly effective for 9th through 12th graders? Well, it directly targets 3 massive cognitive benefits. First up, it develops structural schema. We know experts organize information way differently than novices do. When you make a teenager create their own categories, you're literally training their brain to build complex mental frameworks so they can retrieve that data later. Second, it fosters genuine intellectual argumentation. When multiple solutions are valid, students actually have to use evidence-based reasoning to defend their perspectives. And third, it provides a really low-stakes, high-thought entry point. It is a highly engaging way to pre-assess how students naturally connect concepts before you even start a unit, or, on the flip side, to synthesize weeks of content before a major exam.
Moving on to Section 2, the 3-step setup.
Let's look at how this builds into practical application. And I promise you, despite all the high-level cognitive work happening here, the actual setup for you is remarkably simple. There are really just 3 essential steps to roll this out. Step 1 is the setup. You provide small groups with a physical deck of 12 to 20 cards. Honestly, these could be vocabulary words, historical primary sources, images, you name it. Step 2 is the group work under those open rules. The students look at the collective deck, they start physically manipulating the cards right there on their desks, and you give them the mantra. Sort it your way and explain. Finally, step 3 is labels and justification. Once they form their clusters, the groups have to create physical labels or headers for each pile and be fully ready to explain the overarching criteria they used.
Now, during that second step, while they're moving those cards around, you are going to hear some amazing academic discourse. You want to hear questions exactly like, does this card belong in this pile, or should we make a brand new category for it? Because there's no answer key to cheat from, right? They are forced to negotiate the boundaries of their own categories. They're engaging in this deep, critical thinking and collaborative reasoning that you just simply cannot get from a standard multiple-choice worksheet.
All right, Section 3, cross-curricular application.
So a super common misconception is that categorization is just an English or social studies trick. But let's pivot and look at how dynamically this scales across the entire building. It is incredibly versatile. In math, you could hand them a deck of equations and they might group them by function family. In science, instead of standard textbook classifications, they might organize organisms by ecological impact. In social studies, it's sorting historical events by causes or effects. World language? Sorting vocabulary by distinct cultural themes, or maybe verb conjugations. And it goes beyond the core classes too. PE classes could sort exercises by strength versus endurance. ROTC could be sorting leadership scenarios. CTE classes could classify technical tools. It's the exact same core strategy, just perfectly adapted to fit every single subject.
And to really illustrate the magic of the open rule in action, let's use an English language arts example. Imagine you give your students 15 quotes from a novel.
Group A looks at that raw data and decides to sort the quotes by character motives, creating headers for greed, revenge, and love. Right next to them, Group B looks at the exact same 15 quotes, but they categorize them by literary devices, creating headers for metaphor, foreshadowing, and irony. Both are entirely different. Both are incredibly insightful, and both are 100% valid as long as those students can defend their classifications using evidence. That is the beauty of this strategy.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, Advanced Facilitation Techniques.
Okay, so you've got this setup down, you know it works for your specific subject. Now, how do we facilitate the room to push student thinking from just good to truly exceptional? Well, here are some masterclass moves to really dial up the rigor. First, try a gallery walk extension. Once groups finish their sort, have them leave their cards on the desk and rotate to view another group's setup. The catch? They have to guess the other group's criteria before reading their category headers. It is a fantastic way to compare classifications. You can also require written justifications to really lock in that academic vocabulary, or, and this is a fun one, intentionally throw in a few ambiguous cards that don't perfectly fit anywhere, just to spark some intense, evidence-based debate.
But I have to say, my absolute favorite facilitation tip is the resort challenge. Look, we all have those groups that finish incredibly fast, right? Maybe they used a really surface-level method, like sorting historical events strictly by time periods. When they call you over, you just look at it and drop this line. Great, now mix them all back up and sort them a completely different way without using your previous categories. It is a game changer. It completely shatters their surface-level thinking and forces those fast finishers to adopt entirely new perspectives and dive right back into deep thinking mode.
Now, if you're sitting there wondering how to generate these perfectly balanced decks of cards without spending your entire weekend planning, there is an incredible tool provided in the source materials for this explainer. It's an AI lesson prompt framework. You literally just plug in your subject, your grade level, and your specific standard. The framework explicitly asks for 12 to 20 items, ensures there are at least 2 or 3 valid ways to group them, and it even generates your discussion prompts for you. It totally empowers you to immediately create custom, highly effective sorts tailored precisely to what you're teaching right now.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up today's explainer. Take a look at your lesson plans. What is one unit you teach next week that could be completely transformed simply by stepping back and giving the sorting power directly to your students? Stop organizing the information for them. Give them the cards, tell them to sort it their way, and explain. And then just watch as they build a much deeper, long-lasting understanding of your content.